Okay, in today's video, JD Vance once again has to school the media. Secondly, Democrats would rather shut down the federal government than to keep American cities safe. And finally, Hakeem Jeffries is confronted with the brutal reality of his party. And all these stories will show you what both sides are saying and give you the bottom line.
We don't have to live like this. My message to my fellow citizens here in DC or all across the country would be that allowing vagrants and armed robberies to take over your city, that's a policy choice. What President Trump is showing is that if you just empower local law enforcement to arrest and prosecute the bad guys, we can take back American streets. You, as a young family, whatever the color of your skin, you should not have to cross the street because there's a crazy person yelling at your children on the other side. You should not be worried that if you take your son out for a meal at 8 o'clock in the evening, an armed robber is going to assault your family. This is a policy choice to allow lawlessness to overrun our cities. The president has made a different policy choice. And I think what he's showing the entire American community is that we don't have to live like this. And that's the biggest thing that will come out of DC. It matters a lot for DC, but I think it matters more for the whole country to see that if we just make better choices, we can take back our cities.
Okay, well, number one, this isn't about the color of your skin. Newsflash. That's what Democrats want this to be about. No, this is about policy. This is about the promise that President Trump made to keep American cities safe. And if he believes deploying the National Guard in order to support local law enforcement in cracking down on crime is the right way to do it, then we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I can't remember a time in our history where cracking down on crime was actually a bad thing. And that's why Democrats want to make this a race issue. They want to say that President Trump is targeting Black and brown communities. It's so far from the truth. Now, here's what the governor of Illinois had to say. Donald Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis, politicize Americans who serve in uniform, and continue abusing his power to distract from the pain he's causing families. We'll continue to follow the law, stand up for the sovereignty of our state, and protect the people of Illinois. Okay, sure. Now, here's what Hakeem Jeffries on CNN this morning had to say. Take a listen.
I strongly support the statement that was issued by Governor Pritzker, making clear that, one, there's no basis, no authority for Donald Trump to potentially try to drop federal troops into the city of Chicago. There's been no request from the state of Illinois, no request at all for federal assistance. I support the Chicago Police Department. I support the New York Police Department. These are men and women who have taken an oath to protect and serve these communities, and they do a great job of that. And we should continue to support local law enforcement and not simply allow Donald Trump to play games with the lives of the American people as part of his effort to manufacture a crisis and create a distraction, because he's deeply unpopular. The one big ugly bill is deeply unpopular. Ripping health care away from millions of Americans is unpopular. Enacting tax breaks for their billionaire donors is deeply unpopular, and that's why a lot of this is taking place.
Okay, I'm going to show you the receipts to rebuke what Hakeem Jeffries just said, but before I do so, if you've been getting value from this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you love the work that we do and you want to support us, go to the link in the description below. You could shop our merch store. We have multiple designs. We drop new ones every week, or you could buy us a cup of coffee. Yeah, but what the House Minority Leader fails to tell people, it's been 9 days without a murder in Washington, D.C., thanks to the support from the National Guard and federal authorities with the local law enforcement to crack down on crime. It's the one fact that all mainstream media will continue to leave out because it contradicts the rhetoric they want people to buy into, which is that President Trump is going to take over these cities. He's going to act as an authoritarian leader. He's going to go after Black and brown communities, et cetera, et cetera. You guys have heard it time and time again. And that's how this presidency will continue to go, as they will emotionally react over everything, be very extreme in their responses, and lose sight of the actual truth. However, according to the DC City Council member, Christina Henderson, she says not only is this all bad, but this move by the president is going to put local businesses out of business. Take a look.
But finally, I want to ask you about the economic impact of this crackdown. Residents have noted nightlife areas and the metro seem empty at night. Restaurant reservations have fallen nearly a third since this time last year. What could be the long-term impact if this crackdown continues indefinitely, as the president has hinted it might?
Well, you have to remember, Reverend, this is on top of the thousands of individuals who have been fired by the federal government. So D.C. was already being hit economically in terms of the number of layoffs that were happening, individuals not having the same type of disposable income that they did before in order to go out. And now it is, again, this heightened anxiety. A lot of the federal agents, they are detaining first and asking questions later. And I know for a lot of district residents, they just don't want to deal with that. So they're choosing to stay home. But I'm wondering and I'm worried about the sustainability of this.
And that's why I remind you guys of this fundamental question. Is there anything that we can agree on when it comes to what Democrats want to do? The answer is no. I'm more likely to disagree with the Trump administration than agree with something that Democrats want to do, because they're totally far gone. Just look here on the screen. I'm using Ground News to show you guys this, all right? And by the way, we love using Ground News because it shows us the full picture of what's being reported. Like in this particular case, like in this particular example, where Democratic candidate Mondami seeks to shift NYPD focus from misdemeanors to serious crimes, meaning he wants to actually get rid of misdemeanors altogether. He doesn't want anybody to get a misdemeanor. He doesn't even want to count misdemeanors. Now, we wouldn't know about that if we didn't do our research using Ground News. And the interesting part about this particular update is this: 72% of the sources who are reporting on this lean right. 0 is coming from the left-wing media. Isn't that interesting?
This is our city. I don't want to hide in my home. I want to be able to go out to my restaurants. I want for folks to be able to go out to concerts and enjoy sporting events and enjoy the nightlife here, as well as for our young people to feel as though this is their home, this is their city to explore, and not to feel as though they are prisoners in their own city. And so I'm hopeful that this will only last for 30 days, and so that the Congress will not extend or vote to extend this emergency even longer, because in my view and in the view of many district residents, this is not a national emergency. This is not a public emergency that is needing troops from 6 different states to be deployed to the district, as well as over 500 federal agents who are deployed each and every night across the city.
Yeah, see, that city council member should call up the people who've had crimes committed against them, where they've lost loved ones to murder in the streets of DC, and tell them that, hey, this is not an emergency. We don't need the National Guard. I wonder how they would react to that. Now, let's go back to Ground News here, because it's very important that you guys continue to exercise your critical thinking skills. In this story regarding Mondani, which is definitely in alignment with what you just heard from that city council member, because I guarantee if it was up to her, she'd do the same thing. According to his campaign, they're seeking to abolish cash bail and reduce arrests for offenses like theft under $1,000 and drug possession. Doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that what happened in San Francisco? Isn't that why the people of California had to go to the ballot and change the law because it got out of hand? You think they would have learned that. But this is why I'm telling you, you guys have to do your own research, because if you listen to what you just heard from that city council member, you think she'd be telling the truth, but she's not. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code Devori, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan. Now, let me just show you how far they're willing to go on this. Here is Democrat Ro Khanna. He's willing to shut the government down in order to stop President Trump from deploying National Guard troops to crack down on crime. Take a listen.
In terms of Democrats standing up, should your Senate colleagues hold the government funding, hold their votes back on government funding in a couple of weeks in order to pull something from Republicans, whether that is getting the National Guard out of Washington, D.C., less weaponization of the DOJ? Should they be holding back their votes on the funding?
Is this even a question? Of course we should. Did we not learn our lesson when we acquiesced early on in the administration? Look, we didn't start off with a good foot. We had Democrats vote for Lake and Riley that has allowed for deportation without due process. We had Democrats vote for capitulation. We need to stand our ground.
Congressman Ro Khanna of California, with that, thank you so much.
Okay, so you heard it. He would rather shut down the government than allow DC to have clean streets. They would rather shut down the government than to save lives. Black and brown lives, might I add, because that is the makeup of Washington, D.C., Chicago, and these other cities. I just can't believe that the party who says that black people are oppressed, that black people are in trouble, that we care about black lives, they are the same party who's fighting against President Trump when it comes to him making their lives safer.
There is an element of this with Trump setting a trap for Democrats, but Democrats are walking into the trap. When Democrats argue, oh, actually, statistically, crime is a little bit down since 2023, and they don't acknowledge that crime is
But Trump draws them
high.
in by saying things that just aren't true. I mean, Trump is not telling the truth about the crime stats.
Look,
crime stats might be down, but
there are
still
many cases in which Trump lies even more than most politicians.
But he says this is the worst ever.
But the way Democrats handle it also matters, and they are making themselves look more out of touch with the way they're responding to it.
You also just have to open your eyes. I mean, look, D.C. looks a lot different than it used to. I mean, I used to live here. I moved because my house got robbed, my car got stolen, and this was before it got bad. So, I mean, there's that element of
and by the way, I'm old enough to have been here in the 90s when it was actually really, really bad. But
okay, let's just stop a moment before we go to our next story. Did you see how she told her personal experience and he blew right past it? Why do they do that? They do it because they're programmed to do it. It's a habit at this point. When someone offers truth and reality and they inject it into the debate, Democrats move right past it. It's really a fascinating thing to see. All right, so next story is still on Democrats. For whatever reason, CNN is finally obsessed with exposing how bad it is as it pertains to voter registration. And why is this story important? Well, as you know, Democrats are crying about Texas redrawing their congressional district maps, and they know that's a nightmare for Democrats. So here is Hakeem Jeffries attempting to respond to that reality. Take a listen.
I do want to ask about a New York Times investigation showing that Democrats are losing registered voters in all 30 states that track party registration. We're putting on the screen the data. It shows altogether Democrats have lost 2.1 million voters. Republicans have gained 2.4 million. That's a deficit that you have of 4.5 million voters. Why are voters turning away from your party? What is the problem?
Most of that activity, as I understand it, has occurred in Florida and Texas. And certainly it is the case that nationally we're going to have to invest more in these two red states. At the end of the day, it's also going to be important for us to continue to make clear to the American people what we stand for as Democrats. We believe in a strong floor and no ceiling. In this country, you work hard, you play by the rules. There should be no ceiling as to what success you can accomplish for yourself, for your family, for your children, for your grandchildren, and your community.
Okay, so is it me or Dana Bash doesn't even know what he's talking about? He doesn't know how to respond to that. I mean, that right there is the nail in the coffin. That's why they're so panicked about what Texas did. Look, you already lost out on all these voters. Basically, it's a 4.2 million deficit for Democrats. That is the complete swing over the past few years, meaning when the midterms rolls around, the voter registration is different than it was in 2018 because they always like to reference that, and 2022. The fact that he doesn't even have an appropriate answer to this shows you how lost they are. Now, if you really want to get down to the substance of this particular issue, for some reason, ABC did the right thing this morning. They actually talked about the merits of this. Take a look.
And in this nationwide war over redistricting, we've seen the two biggest states go first. The biggest red state, Texas. You mentioned those 5 additional seats.
Look at all that red.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of blue. They're squeezing that big time. Now, what we're seeing the opposite in California, where the Democrats under Gavin Newsom are putting a map on the ballot for voters this fall that could get them those 5 seats back. So that would make those 2 states.
Only 4 Republican seats, 48 for the Democrats if they pull it off.
If they were able to pull it off with the voters next year. And then, John, if you look at the other states that might still do redistricting this year, bottom line, it is advantage GOP. There are just more opportunities in places like Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida than there are in some of the big blue states like Illinois and Maryland. So at the end of this, it looks like Republicans are going to be able to squeeze just a little bit more juice out of these redistricting fights.
Now, one of the pushbacks we see is that if you look at the map visually, hey, there's no blue on the map. But what they failed to tell you is there is blue on the map, and it's located in the most populous area of the state. And I'm talking about Texas, Dallas, Houston, El Paso, San Antonio. This is where majority of the population is located. Just like in California, most of the population is in San Francisco, LA, Orange County, San Diego, Sacramento. I mean, that's where all of the Democrats are really located. So I find it interesting how if Texas gets their way, which the governor's still waiting to be able to sign the new map into law, there's only going to be 8 seats for Democrats. If California gets their way, there will only be 4 seats for Republicans. You see the difference there? Now, I told you how John Carl earlier blew past truth and reality. Here he is doing it again. Take a listen.
Because if history is any guide, the Republicans are not going to maintain control of the House.
Midterm elections are almost always a referendum on the sitting president. Right now, Donald Trump, according to New York Times polling average, has a 44% approval rating. And again, we have more than a year to go before we get there. And if you look at the history of recent midterms, an unpopular president means a very, very rough midterm election, particularly when it comes to the House. Barack Obama lost 63 seats.
Trump lost 40.
He knows.
Lost 40.
Yeah.
Remember how angry he was the day after that midterm? I mean, that changed his presidency. He doesn't want it to happen again. But Democrats...
Yeah, I told you he likes to blow past reality. You saw how he was so emotional about President Trump losing 40 seats, but he had nothing to say when former President Obama lost 63 seats. That's a record.
Yeah, and this is just a stunning analysis that the New York Times has out in the last couple of days. You've seen nationwide a drop in Democratic registration numbers. And in the battleground states, it's just as stark. Look at this. The share of registered Democrats down almost 4 points in Arizona just since 2020. Nevada, more than 8 points. North Carolina, Pennsylvania, all of these big battlegrounds have lost Democrats in large numbers, again, just this decade. So that just tells you how tough it's going to be for Democrats to fight their way back when it comes to control of Congress or potentially the presidency down the road. It's hard to create a wave if voters are fleeing your party.
Extraordinary that Democrats have lost more than 2 million registered voters just in the past 4 years.
So hopefully that segment got to show you why Democrats are emotionally out of control. And they're panicking over what Texas has decided to do. And quite frankly, this was going to happen one way or another sooner or later, because this is what Democrats have been doing for a very long time now. It's just now Republicans are trying to do the same thing for themselves. And that's where Democrats just can't handle it. Now, I guess the better question is, what about the Democrat who only has one Republican in their state, but they claim to believe in making sure constituents are fairly represented? How do they explain getting rid of that one seat? Well, here is Governor Wes Moore trying to come up with that answer. Take a look.
That may be different, but Democrats redistrict. You know this.
Yeah.
But Gavin Newsom's doing it right now. A few years ago in New York, we saw this. This can backfire. Do you really want to go down this road?
I want to make sure that we have fair lines and fair seats, where we don't have situations where politicians are choosing voters, but that voters actually have a chance to choose their elected officials. We need to be able to have fair maps. And we also need to make sure that if the President of the United States is putting his finger on the scale to try to manipulate elections because he knows that his policies cannot win in a ballot box, then it behooves each and every one of us to be able to keep all options on the table to ensure that the voters' voices can actually be heard and we can have maps.
In that one district where they have a Republican representative, that they are actively being represented in Maryland?
I think if you look at maps across the country, less than 10% of congressional seats are actually competitive by nature. Less than 10%. And so if you look at the average win margin in our state and so many states, the average win margin is upwards of 20 to 30%. So that means we already have so many gerrymandered areas that we have to be able to add a measure of fairness in the way that it's applied. And so, yes, all options need to be on the table in the state of Maryland.
Yeah, so I actually throw this debate in the same category as funding for elections, okay? As we know, Citizens United was decided by the Supreme Court that allows corporations and rich billionaires to donate money to people's election campaigns. And every single election, what happens? Both sides complain about it. But they're benefiting from what they complain about. And if they don't want to complain about it, then they should come together and pass a bill to ban it. And they haven't done it. Just like banning members of Congress from trading stocks, they haven't done that either. So this whole gerrymander and redrawing districts to favor one party over another, the only way it's ever going to be fixed is if they come together and pass a law to ban it. And they haven't done it. So there's that. Now here's the vice president and his reaction to all of this. Take a look.
Do you have to ask yourself, why have Democrats gerrymandered their states aggressively over the past 10 to 20 years? If you look, for example, at the popular vote in a lot of these states, and Massachusetts, where 32% of the residents of Massachusetts voted for Republicans, 0 Republican federal representatives. So we're not trying to sort of, all we're doing, frankly, is trying to make the situation a little bit more fair on a national scale. The Democrats have gerrymandered their states really aggressively. We think there are opportunities to push back against that, and that's really all we're doing.
Yeah, see, you can tell the difference in the argument and which one has more credibility. If you're listening to Republicans like JD Vance, they're just flat out honest about it. Hey, we are taking advantage of gerrymandering. We're doing exactly what Democrats have done for time and time again. And now we're pushing back on that. And Democrats, all they are is just emotional people who can't even answer a simple question, right? I mean, that's what we have at this point. Now, what's more disturbing, and again, Congress is usually the issue here. They've yet to pass a law to ban illegal aliens from being counted in the census, which also impacts the congressional districts. And the vice president did bring that up.
We had way fewer House seats than we should have. 1, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and 2, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
Of course, people who are here and who are not documented are not eligible to vote. But
they're not eligible to vote, but they do go in the congressional apportionment. That's why California has so many more seats, is because they count illegal aliens. So even though they don't vote, well, some of them actually do vote, but hopefully most of them don't, they end up getting congressional representation that ought by right go to American citizens.
I know.
All right, so let's hear from you guys in the comments section below. First, let's talk about gerrymandering. Do you believe it's a good thing or a bad thing? And based on that answer, do you believe Congress should pass a law banning it? Let me know what you guys think about that. Secondly, what's your reaction to Zohran Mamdani, who is pushing, if he is elected as New York City mayor, to ban misdemeanors and only focus on serious crimes and up the theft amount that would warrant someone getting arrested, which would be $1,000. We saw this happen in San Francisco. Didn't work out. Just let me know your thoughts about that, please. And then finally, answer this. Do you believe when you see National Guard troops in your city, maybe in the downtown areas, do you believe that's actually disrupting your ability to have a good time? Do you believe that makes you feel like a prisoner in your own city if National Guard troops are patrolling the areas, helping local law enforcement? Let me know your answer in the comment section below. Okay, so in our next video, ICE has made a chilling ultimatum to Abrego Garcia. He was released from federal custody, but he has to make a decision: plead guilty and be sent to prison, or get deported to Uganda. If you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.